Hi everyone, my name is Jaret Reddick and welcome to the very first episode of the It's Not a Phase podcast. And what a debut I have in store for you. I managed to grab a hold of easily one of the busiest and loveliest guys in pop punk, Jaret Reddick, frontman for Bowling for Soup. We cover quite a lot of things, including the band's new album, Pop Drunk Snot Bread, his new solo country album Just Woke Up, yeah, you heard me right, a solo country album, and also how he somehow manages to balance 50 billion things at once as well as just having a normal nice life with his family. But before we get into all of that, let's cover off the no doubt boring but important stuff. If you enjoy this episode and you want to support the podcast, please consider leaving a review wherever it is that you're listening to this. There's also a Patreon, a merch store, or you can follow me and the podcast on social media. All of the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And with that all out of the way, let's jump right into my chat with Jaret Reddick here on It's Not a Phase. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by Bowling for Soup frontman, recently turned solo country artist and producer, Jaret Reddick. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's not too bad. It's a bit, dim and gloomy over here in the UK, but I know you're heading over here soon, aren't you? So you'll soon see.
You guys are used to it, though. I mean, it's that's pretty much the way it just is.
Yeah.
I was very lucky. I came over there for C2C Festival in London and to do the country thing.
Yeah.
And man, we had just sun, and it was glorious. It was maybe the best weather I've seen in the UK in years.
Yeah, I mean, we had a heat wave recently, but I guess it's nothing compared to the Texas heat that you get over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's, but I sort of am one of those guys that where I get it, it's because it's what you're used to.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, in LA, when it just sprinkles, they all lose their minds,
Yeah.
when it's a little bit of rain. And so, I get that whenever it's hot uncharacteristically, that's a whole thing. And plus you guys just don't put air conditioning anywhere. It's freaking bizarre.
That's true. Yeah. Like all the buildings are built to like insulate heat. So when it gets hot, it just stays in.
Yeah. So. There's just that's the thing, is just, there's no circulation, no movement. Yeah. And you can feel it. Like for us, where it's not like that, because air movement, because it's hot and, it's either hot or cold here.
Yeah.
So the movement of the air is so, important. And so kind of get that right when you step off the plane in the UK, like you feel it instantly. You get off the plane in Heathrow and you're like, man, the air is still here. But yeah, man, it's, but definitely understand when it gets hot, when it's not supposed to, that you
it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Totally. I get it.
So let's talk about your solo country album you just put out a few weeks ago, Just Woke Up. Has a country project been something that you've kind of wanted to work on for a while? I mean, it's to the casual like pop punk fan, they might think it's a bit strange, but you're from Texas, so it's kind of,
Yeah, from Texas, definitely something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I mean, there's so many things like that you talk about doing, but I'm in Bowling for Soup and that's my job, and I of course do other things. I'm a voice actor as well, and so there's certain things that need my time. But yeah, I'd been talking about doing a country record for a really long time. I just kind of I never really knew in what capacity I'd want to do it. Like, would I start a band? Would we do Bowling for Soup Goes Country? And with that, it was like, I don't know. I felt like that would just be seen as very novelty, even if we were serious about it. And so that's one thing that quarantine afforded me, was the time to just, in fact, I have to give a lot of credit to Zach Malloy, who produced and wrote the record with me, for really just being the voice that just said, look, you've been talking about this long enough. Let's just do it. And, there we went. So that was about a year ago. And it's pretty cool, to have had a vision like that and been thinking about doing something like that for so very long, and then to just be like, okay, let's just. It feels good, man. It feels like it needed to happen. I'm really, really glad that it's out there.
So these songs that you wrote a while ago and sat on for a while for the country project, or is it just stuff you were working on with Bowling for Soup, or like how did that kind of come to be? I guess.
With the exception of Ohio and the Bitch Song, which are obviously Bowling for Soup songs, and then a song called Drunk as It Takes, which features Frank Turner. Everything was written for this record. Obviously, and Natalie as well. So to back up, obviously we covered Bowling for Soup's Ohio, Come Back to Texas, and the Bitch Song. And I wanted to do something just to have a little bit of familiarity so that, because not everybody, but a lot of people approach something like this as going, oh, I hate country. When is the new Bowling for Soup coming out? And it's like, I don't know. Give me a chance, And then the song Drunk as It Takes, I wrote like 12 or 13 years ago with Zach and a dude named Rodney Clausen, who has a bunch of number ones in Nashville. And we basically did that song to try and get another artist to do it, but it never happened. So I was like, man, I think that song is still good, and it made a lot of sense on this record. And then finally, Natalie was actually a song by my biological father, who I didn't know who he was until just a few years ago, but he recorded it. He's not on the planet, but he recorded it in 1959 as a young kid, and so sort of just did that as a tribute, so to speak, and really for my sisters, who I just found a few years ago as well.
So it's quite of a personal album as well, then. Some of the songs. For
sure, a lot of personal stuff on there. In fact, just at every turn, Zach would come lyrically, and we wrote the album by sending each other back lyrics and audio files and things like that. And so, pretty much at every turn, he would go, "Oh my God, like that is crazy that you said that," or "Oh my God, that gave me chills." And a lot, and on both, we have a new Bowling for Soup record coming out soon too. Both of them have a lot of personal stuff, a lot of reflection, and maybe that comes with age. Maybe it comes from, my kids getting a little older. But I think a lot of it is just that all of us sort of had to take stock of a lot of things the last couple of years, with whether it's because we lost someone or whether because our lives, the rug was pulled out from under us or whatever the case may be. I think reflection just sort of was in the air as both these records were being written.
So did you tackle the way that you would write the songs for this solo record? Did you tackle them in a different way that you would typically do a Bowling for Soup song, or was it kind of the same kind of thing but adapted to the country style that you've gone for?
Definitely different. Bowling for Soup is, whether it's me and Linus writing it, our producer and who co-writes with me a lot, or whatever. I actually I wrote one with Joe from Patent Pending on this new BFS record, and Bowling for Soup songs are sort of just built. It's like the idea, and then I start just building it on the computer, and by the time I'm done, it sounds like a song. These songs were written, like I said, with Zach. They started with an idea, and then there was like a lyric idea, and then one of us would play something and send it back to the other one, and then they kind of all found their way onto the cloud, and we went back and forth on them, but they were never, there were never like solid demos made. Just acoustic run-throughs. And then another thing that's quite different in country, you just sort of hire a band and they go in and just play your songs for you, and you just sing on top of it. So I never even met the guys who played on my album.
Oh, really?
These ringers from Nashville that, went in, and Zach went in with them one day and they played all 12 songs in one day, and then I went and sang it. So a big difference there, whereas, a Bowling for Soup record can take 3-4 weeks to do. And this one was done just in a matter of days.
So that's another string to your bow, I guess, like, experiencing these different ways of producing and putting together these songs.
Yeah, and there's so many ways that things happen these days with technology and being able to pass things back and forth. It's like even the recording process is so different than it used to be. We don't, a lot of times we're not ever in the same location, all of us together. I mean, this country-wise, it was definitely a lot different. But it's modern technology affords us these ways to do things these days that we wouldn't have been able to do before.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of marries over to what I want to talk to you about next, and you kind of touched on anyway, is the guests that you've got on the album. So you've got like Frank Turner, Uncle Cracker. How did they come to be on the album? I guess obviously, like you kind of mentioned, the technology kind of helped, if you could do like remote recording and stuff.
Yeah, so each is its own little story. Frank and I had been doing a weekly thing on Instagram called Back to the Metal, and it was just essentially a 40-minute conversation that he and I were doing every week at a certain time, where we met up and we just talked about what was going on in our lives or whatever. And so I was like, hey, I don't want to take the piss, so to speak, but I'm a huge fan of his music as well. And so I sent him the song, and I was like, man, I'd really like you to sing on this. And he was gracious, and as always, and did it right away and sent it back. And same is true with Uncle Cracker. Just like, I think this would be a great one for you to sing on. What do you think? I've known him for years. And then Stefan from The Descendants, same, playing guitar on Natalie. And then Cody Canada, who's a huge Red Dirt star here in Texas, who I've known for many, many years because his former band, Cross Canadian Ragweed, we used to do a bunch of shows with them back in the day as Bowling for Soup. So, dear friends that I could call upon, I probably could have, not probably, I could have kept going, but I didn't. I felt like if I got too many guests, then I'm starting to approach that whole novelty idea again.
Yeah.
And so there's a few, in my back pocket that next time I'll be able to ask, but very happy with all of their performances and just the fact that they would all think enough of me to be on this record.
And have there been any other like genres and styles of music you wanted to dabble with in the past, like you have with country, or do you think it's just going to be the country and pop punk thing that you're going to stick to?
I think country and pop punk pretty much is it. I have another band called Jarinus, and we kind of dabble in the metal thing a little bit, and then I have Jaret and Kelly. We're doing more of an Americana kind of record this time. So I have all of the outlets that I really need. I mean, I'm not good enough of a musician to put out a jazz record, and nor do I have any instrument or any interest in it as well. So I think I pretty much have it covered. I think Bowling for Soup does enough just straight up rock songs that we kind of run the gamut of that whole side of things. Yeah.
And you obviously experiment with that band a little bit as well, like, really cool dance song where, obviously the take on the song is to take the piss out of dance songs and stuff. So,
right.
Yeah,
it's so funny because I love history is such a funny thing because you can look back on it and think back to the way that people reacted to certain things or whatever. But just singing about how that song was so funny because the label just really did not understand what we were doing. They were just, because everybody was so out of touch back then. And I was like, we're essentially poking fun at all of the bands who are like us that are going to go out and do this kind of music. And we could see it coming.
Yeah.
And of course, there it came. We call it the bleep bleeps and the bloop bloops.
Great name.
But, that's a funny one because, and again, you have to sort of, in my world, you have to make fun of things, but I'm not really here to hurt anybody's feelings. You know, like I want anyone who I'm sort of nudging to see the humor in everything.
I mean, because we've moved on to the Bowling for Soup conversation, and obviously you talked about the album earlier. You've got a new record coming out in a few weeks called Pop, Drunk, Snot Bread.
Pop, Drunk, Snot Bread. Yeah, it's hard to say until you get it.
It is. I believe, did you record that in, was it September 2020? Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, August and September 2020. Quarantine had hit. We're just, it's months and months of not seeing anybody and, our kids being locked up and really just not seeing each other. And we didn't really have any plans to do an album in 2020 or even 2021. It was really just, we need an excuse to go and spend some time together. So let's just go make a record. And that's exactly what we did. We went up to the Poconos, which is where Rob lives, and locked ourselves in a house that was a mile away from a studio that we went back and forth, no interaction with anybody else, and made a record.
Because it's obviously recorded back then, and it's 2022 now. Has it been something that you've been sitting on purposely, like, because obviously with COVID and you want to promote and tour it safely and also properly, as opposed to when things towards the start of the pandemic were opening and shutting so frequently? Not
sitting on it. I mean, my plan was to get it out as quick as possible. And so about the time that we released Getting Old Sucks off of that record, I was like, let's get this thing out in the next couple of months. And then really what happened is, our managers and agents, and this is fairly common, but started hearing songs and we're like, hey, let's take our time on this. I think this is really, really good. Like, let's not just throw it out there like we have done in the past.
Yeah.
And being as how we haven't done like a whole album in a long time, I was receptive to it. In hindsight, I wish we had released it back at least sometime last year, even towards the end of the year. However, I get it. I understand why. And at the end of the day, it times out really great to be coming out towards the end of our tour. And, just before Rob and I are back, just before Rob and I are back for the acoustic tour. And then obviously, we have summer dates that just got announced. So, it all worked out in the end. I'm not really a fan of sitting on music because I feel like this day and age, attention spans are short enough to where it's like, let's just go, go, go. And I'm fairly prolific in delivering things when I need to. So I don't know whether I'll ever do that again. Sort of like make an album and then allow everybody to tell me hey, let's wait. So we'll see. I trust the people around me, but I also I want to create music. That's what I do.
Because you kind of touched on it there. Like you guys do put out music fairly frequently, at least compared to like a lot of other bands.
Yeah.
I mean, you can correct me if my maths is wrong here, but I think between this new record and Drunk Dynasty, I think that's the longest gap you guys have had so far between two records
ever. We did manage though to put out a lot of cover songs, and we recorded our second greatest hits. Actually, I think Songs People Actually Liked Volume 1 came out after Drunk Dynasty, but I'm not certain. But and we put some other things out. We put out a live album and a live acoustic album, and some stuff. But yes, definitely. I mean, we were on a roll where we were doing something every 2 years for a very long time. And the thing is the reason that gap was there is because, as I said before, I don't really know that we were living in the world of albums anymore until we were sort of not forced, but granted the time to do one. I mean, again, it's our own thing where it was like, look, we need something to do that brings us together, and let's go do this. And it worked out great.
And it's your first record with Rob, right? Did that whole, the new member kind of give you kind of a bolt of revitalization and, getting rejuvenated?
He's sort of done that across the board, honestly. I mean, we love Eric. He's our brother, but Rob in so many aspects. I mean, it's like you get into even just venues or whatever, and somewhere where we've played 5 or 6 times, it's new to him. So we get to experience that through his eyes a lot of times, and it's pretty cool, And so he reminds us of not that I don't think that it's not that we ever forget. We definitely don't take anything for granted. But I think we're sort of just used to things, and he's a very good reminder of how awesome things are a lot of times. And he keeps us on our toes too. I mean, we sort of allow him to pick songs for tours and things like that, and so a lot of times he'll be like, "We're going to do this song," and it's like, "What? Like we've done that song in years?" Yeah, that's why we're doing it. But definitely fun in the studio. And again, he's like up every day, excited to be there, super excited to be working on it. He actually got a couple of co-writes on the record, which really, really made him excited. And so, we love our Rob for sure.
Just like the new kid on the block, just wanting to play with all the new toys and.
Yeah, totally, man. Just, it's like you, I'm sure it's like a rookie on a sports team where they just have a fire to them that really, I think, puts a little pep in the step, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's obviously, a comedic spin to you guys, and not just in your songs but on live sets. Like, you have the group photos that you do on some shows and stuff like that. Yeah. I think what's really great about you guys is you do the jokes, and they're obvious, but they're also subtle, and it's not like an overkill kind of overly goofball kind of thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked on a song that you thought afterwards is just too silly and just haven't put out there?
Man, that's a good question. I don't think so. Well, yeah. I mean, we had this one song once. I guess one time we did this song where we so every single time it would turn from like the verse to the chorus, it would modulate. So it would go up in key every single time. And so they ended up having like 12 key changes throughout the song. And that was ridiculous. It was actually quite unlistenable. That's kind of the only time. I mean, I'm very careful lyric-wise. I mean, it's, actually it's funny. I was just talking about this earlier today. It's like, I think probably from an outsider's perspective, you might look at Bowling for Soup songs and go, oh, those are probably pretty easy lyrics to write. And I actually would challenge you to try. And most people that do will say, I don't know how you do that, because as you said, there's a big difference between funny and silly, or, just cheesy and or poignant or whatever, and it's those subtle things that really you have to be able to make more grandiose, I guess, so to speak. So, for me, it's something that I've crafted over a long period of time. And so I've had other songwriters go, hey, I want to write a song with you. I get this idea, it's called My Neighbor's a Porn Star. And I'm like, that is not funny. And it's also, that's a stupid idea. Don't write that song. And so that's the thing is I want people to laugh, but I also want the songs to be smart. And if they're overtly silly, then it needs to be that way for a reason. Like, for example, My Weena has all of the references in there, but, some of them are they're very, very well thought out. Yeah. And then some of them are all obviously just absolutely silly, she's always hanging around or whatever, So, but yeah, I take pride in being able to write smart, funny songs.
But you also touch on serious topics and stuff like that. So, I mean, I was listening to some of your music earlier today, 99 Biker Friends.
Yeah.
It's quite a serious kind of topic that you cover, but you put some light-hearted stuff in there to make it, not, I don't know what the right word would be, but,
Yeah, it's not abrasive. It's like, oh my God, you just did a song about, domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And it's 100% very much against domestic abuse.
100%.
But I didn't hold up a sign that just says, don't beat girls, Yeah. So the same is true on the new record. We have a song called Hello Anxiety. And anxiety is something that I deal with and talk about quite a lot. And it unfortunately has found its way into so many of us. So, it was probably time to approach it from a song's perspective. But I didn't want to do it from a ballad's perspective of oh man, I'm anxious. My life sucks. I lost this. And, this is what it's done to me. Instead, it was let's do it from a bowling pursuits perspective, where we're just all right, I guess this is how we're starting our day today, And so, I definitely, and especially in, the last few records, I'm not really that worried about talking about a sensitive subject, because I feel like that there's a way that we can do it to where it doesn't come, again, I mean, we're not, look, I like My Chemical Romance, but we couldn't approach life things the way that they do. That wouldn't make any sense for us to present it that way. Yeah. And so, that we have our way of doing it.
And in the same way, talking about the kind of comedy thing, you also have many mentions and tips of the hat to certain celebrities. Obviously, there's the Alexa Bliss song.
Yep.
Val Kilmer. Obviously, all the name mentions in High School Never Ends.
Mm-hmm.
Have there been any, at least that you know of, where these celebrities know about these songs that you've written? And obviously, Alexa Bliss was part of the video and stuff. But and I think I heard about a story that you had with Val Kilmer on a talk show, and he said that he heard the song, but he very clearly didn't.
He hadn't heard it. Yeah, we gave him the CD, and then Jimmy Kimmel was like, hey, these guys have a song called Val Kilmer. Have you heard it? He goes, yeah, it's great. And then it was like, uh-oh. And, he had his son there, and his son was a fan. And I was a little bit worried about that one, because I said that he sucked as Batman, and I had never actually seen that.
He's not going to hear this, but it is probably the worst Batman I've seen.
Yeah, I guess that seems to be consensus. But, he's a fine actor in other movies. But I can't really think of any of the celebrities that I've mentioned that, but there's definitely ones where I hope that they have, I hope that Reese Witherspoon knows that I think she's the prom queen, and I think that holds up, and I can only hope that some of them have heard the references. Pretty sure Brad Pitt has to have heard the new song for sure. I mean, I don't know how he couldn't have.
And if he hasn't, where's he been?
Yeah, exactly. What has he been doing? Doesn't he just Google himself to see what people are doing?
Exactly. I mean, I definitely consider, Bowling for Soup as one of the, the absolute pop punk mainstays of that, that boom that we got at the end of the 1990s, the start of the 2000s, Blink-182, Offspring, Green Day, all that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
You know, you're approaching 30-year mark as a band, and you've still managed to maintain such a consistent back catalogue, and fan base is growing, especially over here in the UK. What do you think it is about you guys as a band that you've been able to do that for nearly 3 decades now?
Well, first of all, it's a testament to just our fans in general for flying the flag and, for, just a constant and consistent support. We're very, very lucky in that regard that it's crazy to me that, there are just so many people who have listened to our band for so very long. I think the other thing is that with us, what you're going to get, I think with some of the other names that you've mentioned, they've managed to go out on different paths and do different things very successfully. Sum 41, almost basically turning into a metal band, but doing it very, very well. And obviously the different versions of Blink-182 that are out there, and they've still managed to be great as well. With Bowling for Soup, I think you just know what you're going to get. It's we are who we are, and we understand where our place in all of that is. You know. And I think New Found Glory kind of does that too. I think they're pretty much like, hey, we sound like New Found Glory, and we're Bowling for Soup. We sound like Bowling for Soup. So I think other bands have strayed and either come back or done something else and done it really, really well. But either way, we've always just stayed the course. And I think part of what makes our band have the longevity that we do is that I feel like people, even before social media was as big as it is now, felt like they knew us because we're just normal. We're just regular dudes, and we don't really have a quirky guy or a mysterious guy. It's just a bunch of dudes that you feel like and you're just like, yeah, they just happen to play in a band, and I pay money to go see them every once in a while. Yeah. It's not, But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Is that same reason I love Bad Religion is if I want to listen to Bad Religion, I don't even need to be selective as far as songs go. You just put it on, and it's all that gives you that same feeling.
I think it's a testament to you guys because, of course, it's really great when bands experiment and it works well, and they go these different routes, kind of like you've said. But it's equally as talented and impressive to kind of stick to what but keep it fresh and not repeating the same thing over and again, which I think some my guys managed to do.
You have to find different ways to talk about shit. Can't. It's funny. It's like High School Never Ends made sense to write in 2005. But that really wouldn't make sense right now. And it's funny. I think I wrote this song called "Dear Megan Fox" back in the day, and I didn't put it on the album because I thought that's going to seem kind of creepy because I'm so much older than her. And now I look back, I'm like, not really that much older than her. I guess it just seemed like it at the time. Yeah. So perspective and things change as far as songs are concerned and stuff. So, there's certain things that you can get away with when you're young, and then you sort of adapt and you go. But, the thing is just writing about what you know and what's happening in your life and trying to make it to where it fits into the majority of your fan base. And, like I said, the new Bowling for Soup record is very retrospective, and we have a song called Greatest of All Time, and a song called Wouldn't Change a Thing, and a song called After All These Beers, and all of those songs are very much like, hey, I love my band, and I freaking never want to be in another band, and it's very much like a Bowling for Soup love fest for about half the record.
Well, I did have a quick listen to the record. I've listened to it maybe 2 or 3 times. I really love the opener, Greatest of All Time. And I especially like I can't remember the line specifically, but it's you're calling out about how you got 2 awards from the same magazine.
Yeah. Yes.
Having the same photos.
Yeah. The story of that is that Kerrang! Magazine did a photo shoot with us, and in it, we were naked in my kitchen.
Right.
And then 20 years later, they gave us we were the second stupidest band ever, in between Motley Crue and Slipknot. And one of the reasons, and the photo that they used was because we did a naked photo shoot in my kitchen. And we definitely point that out. I'm hoping that finds the ears of those responsible for that, and they can have a laugh about that.
So what is your kind of opinion on the pop punk scene as it looks like today?
I'm a fan. I'm not a MGK hater. I think I think he's in it for the right reasons. I just think that there's a machine behind him that people might not like. I think he 100% made a pop punk record because he loves the genre. And I think that's evident in who he chose to work with, and John Feldman and Travis Barker. You really just don't get more pop punk than that. I think there are just so many new bands that are coming up, and then I like the resurgence of the guys from our class as well. Sum 41 coming out with a double record, and Newfound Glory just did a great tour with Simple Plan. Simple Plan coming back out again soon. We the Kings are back in the studio. There's a whole bunch. I just think it's in a good spot. And like I said, there's a whole new fan base that's privy to it, and then there's a nostalgic aspect of it to a lot of people too, where it's just like, and it doesn't hurt my feelings. I think a lot of people are uncomfortable to say to me like, dude, like you're all I listened to in junior high, and now I've got 7 kids. Like that does not bother me. That makes me feel very happy. I'm very glad that we were there for them during that time. And so, the main thing is that all of this is all just driving people to the genre, and I think it all helps. It's funny. People are like, just what do you think of Machine Gun Kelly? I'm like, I haven't listened to his new record. I think his last record's great. My wife loves it. Yeah, and my Spotify streams are up. So let's go.
True. Like what they say, rising tide raises all boats.
Sure. That's just it. It's like I've just never been a fan of I don't really even understand why people take so much time to put negative things into the world or onto the internet or just into the air. Like that just takes so much effort, and there's so much thought involved, where you could put something that's nice out there with so much less effort. It's, you ever notice that it's easier to word a nice email than it is a mean one, and it's, and the same is true with just posting. It's like, it's so much easier just to say you don't like that, to say that you like something, or just not fucking say anything at all. Obviously everybody needs to have their own opinion as far as music is concerned, but I just feel like some of the gatekeepers on some of the genres is just silly. When some 17-year-old kid's telling me what pop punk is, like, I'm just like, you don't know who the fuck you're talking to. Like, I'm in this, dude, So yeah, man, I just think, I'm just happy that people are still getting exposed to the genre. I'm happy that people are going to the shows, and I hope more comes.
TikTok especially helps as well. Like there's a big resurgence of pop punk there, and the younger fans coming in from there as well.
For sure. Yeah. I love the whole "I'm Just a Kid" movement. So great. Everything is awesome.
Yeah. And there's loads of those like emo and pop punk challenges where they go through like different tracks and stuff. And,
for sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, talking about that, like obviously you've got your solo album, you've got Born for Soup, you're a producer, you've done voiceovers and stuff. You've got kind of like 50 billion different hats on the go. How do you manage your time to be able to kind of like balance all these different outlets you've got going on?
It's not the easiest thing in the world. I will say that, like, for the first time in my life, I feel a little overextended coming off of a 2-year, like, just begging for something to do. But I'm super happy about that. So, I hate that there's some things that I say I'm going to do, and it takes me a while to get to it. There's some feature stuff that I have owed people some songs for a while, and there's just not enough hours in the day. But, I have to sort of barrel through, go do the best I can with the time that I have. And I, all while making sure that I'm taking care of my family and making sure that I, see my kids and spend time with my wife and, pet my dogs and, those things. So it's not the easiest juggle in the world, but I will say another thing about me is that I don't really have any hobbies. Making music and creating things is really my hobby. So this is how I spend my time. Yeah. If I'm not spending time with my family, this is what I'm doing. So it all works out. But yeah, I definitely, towards the end of quarantine, had to start saying, okay, well, I guess now I don't do this anymore. Like, I don't manage bands anymore, and I don't write songs for things that aren't my own stuff, for now, and kind of just cap a few things. And that's helped a little, but yeah, I stay busy.
Yeah. Well, I think the pandemic's kind of helped people put things into perspective, as in what to prioritize and what not to, because something like that comes along and then we don't really get a choice to do something sometimes.
That's true. Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
So, we talked about it before. You've got, nearly 30 years going as a band, coming up to your 11th studio album. You've had a Grammy nomination. You've done multiple tours across the world, performed at some of the biggest rock festivals in the world, millions of album sales, all massive milestones that not many bands, you can say, hit. What is the next milestone for Bowling for Soup? Man,
that's very hard. There was a few years ago where I said, I don't really necessarily have to accomplish anything else. I feel like we've done it. There's things that I would like to do. I'd like to tour Brazil. I'm excited to celebrate 30 years, but I'm not in any hurry, But as you said, we're just so lucky in that. It's like the whole thing where somebody asked me, like, if you could pinpoint one highlight, it's like, how could I? What do you say when, on January 7th, 2003, you're nominated for a Grammy and your first child is born? Like, and I've got 10 days like that have happened to me, So it's very hard. I will just say this. I'm content in all that we've accomplished and all of the things that we've done. And man, I just hope that we can continue to play music and tour and put music out, and just, as long as we can just stay doing what we're doing, I am very, very happy.
Well, I think you've got no problem doing that. I mean, the new album is fantastic.
Thanks, man.
Essentially the best one you've ever done.
I thank you for saying that. That's a really hard thing, because I think a lot of bands come out and go, I think this is our best album ever. And I've kind of only done that twice in the past. I think that this one is going to be one that people are going to go, you know what, this might be as good as my favorite Bowling for Soup record, if not my favorite. So I appreciate you saying that, man.
I'd be surprised if many people didn't say that, I promise you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks very much.
As a band who's walked the walk, what would you say to a new band starting out today? What advice would you give? What would be the number one tip?
Number one tip is make music for you. Make me, and by you I mean you and your band, and be brothers and sisters first. Because I don't think that I've ever seen any people more miserable than bands that don't like each other. I think that there's just a misery there that is just, I guess it'd be like staying in a bad marriage, only you have to be in the same 10-foot space all of the time. So I would say do what you love with the people that you love, and shake every single, or fist bump every single fist you can, and just be a good person.
Wise words, Jaret. Wise words. Thank you again for your time. I'm going to let you go now and enjoy the rest of your day. Before I do, anything else you want to say? Anything you want to plug?
Well, we will be obviously in the UK soon for with our buddies Lit and the Dolly Rots on a tour. We'll be back in May for another tour, acoustic wise. And Jaret Reddick Just Woke Up is out now, and Bowling for Soup, Pop Drunk Snot Bread coming out April 22nd. So thank you guys.
A busy 22 for you.
Busy 22 for me, man. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, thanks again for your time. Like I said, I'm going to let you go. And take care of yourself, and good luck with the tour.
Thanks, Zach. See you soon, man.
And that's it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of It's Not a Phase. Again, if you liked it, please consider supporting the podcast in any way that you can. Whether that be a review wherever you listen to this, joining the Patreon community, picking up some merch, or just following us on social media. Any support, no matter how big or small, really does help. There's a new episode coming every Thursday, so be sure to follow, and you can also subscribe to the newsletter on itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again, stay safe, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.